Ontario's premier says he understands the public backlash after the province bought a private jet. The second-hand Bombardier plane cost about $29 million. Doug Ford says he's had a lot of calls about that price tag since last week. He also says that he should have explained earlier why the plane was needed.
I understand everything is going up and it's costly. And I do appreciate the calls that I received saying this is not the time right now. I also appreciate the calls that said, yes, this is justified. I told my team 100% I should have been out there and made the case and given the why. So yes, that was what I should have, and I didn't. It was on a Friday. We took possession. I can't remember, Wednesday or Thursday. We put the story out there, and I should have done it. So you're 100% right.
Ford says the plane would have made it easier for him to get to remote parts of the province. He says he's listened to the concerns and that plane is going to be resold quickly. The question is, will it affect Doug Ford's image? David Coletto is CEO of Abacus Data, and he tracks Doug Ford's popularity in Ontario. He joins me now. David, we just heard Doug Ford basically saying, I was wrong, we're going to resell it. But tell me, as someone who tracks public opinion, how do you think the whole story in itself is going to affect Doug Ford?
Well, hi, Sarah. We'll see what the polling suggests, but I think the reason why I think this issue broke through so quickly and was talked about so much was because, one, it really did go against, I think, the way that Doug Ford was viewed by a lot of people in Ontario. He has been a premier who, by all accounts, has been accessible. He gives his phone number out to pretty much everyone and everywhere he goes. I've been on a plane 2 or 3 times in which he's walked on and walks right to the back of the plane, sits in economy class, and I think relishes in showing people that's exactly what he's doing. He holds Ford Fest, a gathering of community members in his riding every year. So he's really been the premier and a leader who has positioned himself as being in touch with people, and I think purchasing a private jet basically isolates him from people. And I think it really struck against that brand. But perhaps more importantly, it was done at a time when most people, not just in Ontario, but across the country, are feeling extra anxiety because of the cost of living. And so here was a perfect example of a politician who, yes, probably would have made his job much easier and more effective, but was doing it at a time when people themselves were feeling that the cost of airline tickets were going up, the cost of gas was going up, and it just, I think, struck people as really out of touch and tone deaf in a way of what people were going through in this moment.
David, I can imagine other politicians, provincial, even federal, maybe, in the face of something like this, rather than immediately saying, I was wrong, we're going to sell that plane, offering that justification for it, offering the answers as to why. What do you make of the way that Doug Ford has handled this?
Well, anyone who's watched Mr. Ford closely knows that this is something he's quite comfortable doing. And I think it's part of his appeal is that he's not afraid or unwilling to admit when he's made a mistake. He often will change course quite quickly if he hears from members of the public, whether a poll gets released that shows that the public opposes something that he's done. So he's very responsive to public opinion. It's one of the things that I think makes him very different, to your point, among many other political leaders. And so this isn't the first time in the close to 8 years he's been in office in which, one day he's doing one thing and then 2 days later, because of the public pressure that's built, he changes course. And so it's one of the things that I think people find appealing because he doesn't dig in and refuse to budge. But at some point, I think, people wonder, well, why did you make this decision in the first place? So this wasn't just that he was planning to buy a plane for the provincial government. It was he actually did it, and now they need to sell it. We'll see if the public forgive him in this case, like they have so many times before.
Doug Ford has claimed that there's no one in this country scrutinized more than he is. One, is that true, do you think? And two, I did a search and I didn't see any other provinces with private planes that they actually own. I didn't find it, but I don't know if you know different. But is he the most scrutinized?
Well, I don't know if he is. I'm an empirically based person, and I'd have to do an analysis to figure that out. But I would say if you ask any politician in a senior role in any part of the country, I think they would admit and believe that they too are scrutinized as much as Doug Ford. I think he used it in the perspective of, well, look, the federal government has jets that it uses for their senior ministers and for other members of the government. The Quebec has one. Why are you, making such a big deal about this? And I think the point was the timing of that. And I think, I look at this and I say, well, this is exactly how the system is really supposed to work, that, the media found out. It wasn't as if they disclosed that they purchased this plane until there was a story broken by the Toronto Star. And then, then the rest of the media picked it up. The public became aware of it. It put pressure on the premier and he changed course. So I don't think it was so much scrutiny as maybe a lack of transparency that would have perhaps, and the premier admitted it, maybe would have been a better course in the way to bring the public along on a decision that you probably know there's going to be some backlash to.
David, I have time for one more quick question here, and that would be, I know you don't have the data on exactly how this is going to play out for Doug Ford, but scandals like this, and certainly you could find comparables, I'm sure, across the country. Then can they have a real effect on changing voters' minds?
They can, and we'll see whether this one does, but it has the makings of one that people will remember, because while the price tag was small relative to some other scandals, and this is not necessarily a scandal as something that's controversial, but it's so, this is, Doug Ford spent his entire political career fighting against elites and reckless spending, and talking about when he was in municipal politics in Toronto and his brother was mayor, the gravy train. And so I think a number of the opposition politicians in Ontario came up with the term gravy plane. And I think those kind of things stick. So we'll see if his negatives go up. We'll see if people start to question whether a decision like this means he's maybe not able to make other decisions. But it's certainly going to be one that I think people remember. And the premier is going to probably need to continue to convince people that not just that this was something he wouldn't do again, but he's going to be more mindful of it in the future.
I guess, and we'll have to see what he gets for that plane on resale. David Coletto, CEO of Abacus Data, thank you.
Thanks so much.